So I keep being called to make these videos. I'm not sure entirely why, but that's the whole point here is, are we going to question everything we feel called to do? Or sometimes should we just do things because? Just because. I just re-released a video from a few years ago where we decided in the backyard there was a section between our greenhouse and the kids' treehouse. There's kind of like an open space there, which nice to have when you're going through with the wheelbarrow. It's nice to have that extra space to move. But we thought, can we do anything else with this space? And of course, we probably had, I don't remember now, but we probably had all kinds of ideas of what we could use it in terms of practicality, um, growing food, maybe a little shed. I don't know. In the end, we decided to go with sheer aesthetics. I don't even want to say it like that because it's not descriptive enough. It's not just the aesthetic. It's not just the surface. It's not just the visual. There's something else there. To create a beautiful perennial garden, which is what we did, the desire comes from a place of not gaining in the traditional sense. It's gaining at the spiritual level, isn't it? I'm trying to suss this stuff out myself here in my head as I'm speaking out loud. But that's really what it is. It's a spiritual gain, but one that's reciprocal, right? I remember when I read the Celestian Prophecy. The whole concept of that book is to develop this relationship with nature, with other living creatures, with all sentient beings, really, where there's a constant giving and giving back and taking back, and it's constantly flowing back and forth. I'm giving the trees energy right now, freely giving of my own energy, and they're giving it back to me. And how you learn how to do it in that book is by breathing it in. Breathe in the energy. I mean, it's the whole concept of the pranayama, right? The breath is life. To inspire is to take in the spirit, right? The breath is what connects us directly from the physical to the spiritual. And you could even argue that it goes through the mental. They're all connected. It's a beautiful thing. But something can also be said for not questioning it too much and just kind of going with it. One thing I noticed with doing magic, especially when I started doing magic, and I should qualify this by saying that when I'm talking about magic, I'm actually talking about Magick. There's a K on the end of that. And what does that K signify? I could come up with some witty, definition of or bullet for that one. But really, what it means is it's a differentiation from magic, like parlor tricks, like magician magic. And when I say magician, I'm talking about black top hat, tuxedo, stage magic, right? Stage magic is not what I'm talking about. That's magic with a C. Magic with a CK is, to me, anyway, this is my definition, my version of it, is things like alchemy, mental, spiritual alchemy. That's magic. Manifestation is magic. And don't be fooled here. Magic, like with most things, can be used for the power of good and for the power of evil, right? I don't mean to create this sort of dichotomy, but innately that's what it is. Things are either productive for us as a species, as a collective, or it's not. And I'm by no means a collectivist. Don't get me wrong here, and we're not going to sway down this pathway because that goes down a rabbit hole of its own. But all this to say, guys, like magic is something that with a K, magic with a K. I'm never referring to stage magic. or illusion magic. I think some of that stuff is pretty cool. Sleight of hand and diversion magic. I think it's very cool. Psychological magic, street magic. Love that stuff. But that's not what I'm talking about here. This is a separate conversation about real magic. Because the stage magic is illusion magic. It's fake magic. It's entertainment magic. I'm talking about magic with a K here, which is basically performing miracles. Let's not kid ourselves here. Let's not, let's just call a duck, right? I don't know if that's an expression or not, but it is for me. A duck is a duck because we've said that that's what it is, and it exhibits every quality, every characteristic that makes that duck a duck. So what happens when you start doing magic is, in a practical sense, you at the beginning you doubt yourself. Like with all new things, you're uncertain. You don't really have a footing. You're kind of guessing half the time. You're not really sure of yourself. But there comes a time where you kind of fall into a bit of a routine. You keep going back to the things that work. You start letting go of the things that are not working. You refine your process. You're narrowing it in. You're getting this thing laser focused. It's kind of like marketing, where there's net marketing, right? Where you cast a big net. I love visuals. I'm a visual learner. I have to imagine things in my mind's eye. That's how I learn. I know not everyone's different. Not everyone is the same, so you got to kind of translate that to what works for you. But in this sort of marketing tactic, in this strategy, you cast a big net, right? Imagine if you're fishing, and if you're a vegan, I apologize for this visual, but imagine you're casting a big net, and you're going to release them after, okay? Just for the sake of the visual, we're going to release the fish. We're casting this big net, catching as much as we possibly can, reeling it in, narrowing it down, funneling it down, concentrating it until it all goes into one place. Let's say the reservoir on the boat where we store the fish. Now we're going to let the fish go now. We're going to replace the fish with ideas and thoughts and feelings and intuitions and synchronicities and coincidences. See what I'm saying? That's magic with a K. I'm only going to say that one more time. I'm always referring to magic with a K. So that's what I'm talking about. And when you start doing this stuff, you will doubt yourself at the beginning. That's normal. That's perfectly normal. But the more you do it, the more you refine your process, the more you have better results. It's just positive reinforcement. I mean, it's not rocket science here, but at the same time, it's something that everyone has to find that path for themselves, their own path. And that's what makes it so unique and beautiful and special, because I can't tell you where to go. I can't say, give me this map, I'll put an X on the spot, go there. I can't do that. What I can do is say, check out my map. Look at how I got there. Maybe that'll give you some ideas of how you can get there too. And again, I'm not saying any of this from a place of, I know better than you. I'm superior in some way. I'm more have access to these insights and teachings and knowledge that you don't have. The truth could not be further from that. Like the actual truth is that what I'm accessing and what I'm tapping into that have helped me tremendously in a really short amount of time. It's incredible. Compared to the years that I was just struggling and doing things wrong. Going back to my point from before, I don't want to digress too much. You stop doubting yourself, okay? You start seeing the results, you refine your process, you are zeroed in now, Okay, and it's not to say you don't make any mistakes. You're constantly making mistakes. That's how we learn. That's one of the main ways that we learn is through making mistakes and that refining process again. But, you'll go from that to, I don't know if this is working. I don't know if I'm just wasting my time. Is this BS? Like, what is this stuff, Because we're conditioned to be so skeptical and so scrutinous of everything. And I'm not saying that it's not good to have that empirical evidence kind of mindset. Yes, it's good to question things, of course, but we're doing this now as a species like to a fault, where we're taking things apart at the microscopic, at the atomic level and beyond. And sort of the closer we get to figuring out the physical side of things, the more the magic is kind of disappearing. Now, you could say that we'll never get to figure it out, right? We'll never get to figure out everything. We're not that vain and egotistical that we think that our species is the sum of all existence. We don't know what came before. We don't know what's going to come after. We don't know what else is out there in the universe. I mean, if we search within, we do know. Of course, it's pretty obvious what the answer is there. But for a lot of people, it's still a great question mark. A big-ass question mark in the sky that's like, don't know. It's cool, again, just like I was saying earlier. It's cool as hell. I love it, but I don't understand it. And I'm not into seeing it that way anyway, so. But yeah, what happens is you'll go, like with most things, you'll go from being an amateur or something or other to being intermediate level, and then from intermediate level to advanced, and from advanced to having somewhat of an expertise, and then it's the same learning curve that comes up. Because I work in e-learning, I see this stuff all the time. It's course development, instructional design, that kind of stuff. You see it all the time. You see it in the way that people create audio narrations and voiceovers, and it's designed to work with this typical learning curve. I mean, not every learning curve is going to be like this, but the average learning curve looks something like this. It goes, right? Goes very, very steep at the beginning to say maybe 70%, and then from 70 to 80%, it kind of like starts to flatten out, and then from 80 to 90%, it kind of flattens out even more, and then from 90 to 100%, it's like really flat all the way to the end, to 100% over a long stretch. What does that mean in practical terms? Well, that's how we learn, is that when you first learn something, and I know if you watch the channel, you've heard me say this before, but it's so true, and it's worth saying again. Let's say the first 2 weeks you learn something new, just to put it in a realistic sense here. I just got a new job at an office building. I'm doing a lot of clerical work, a lot of like data entry and that sort of thing. So my first 2 weeks learning this job, just getting information drilled into my head constantly every day for 8 hours. I go home at the end of the day just wiped out, just because mental energy is just so draining. Or mental work is so draining of mental energy. So for 2 weeks, I'm kind of just struggling. It's that upward climb, that really difficult, steep initial learning curve it's quite difficult to surmount. A lot of people along the way maybe will drop off and quit throughout the training. You can imagine to scenarios in your own career path where that might have happened, where you were taking training for some job and you just saw people dropping off like flies around you. Maybe they just found something else. Maybe they just couldn't cut it. But that's what it is. And then, but for most probably, they'll ride it out. And after a couple of weeks, the curve starts to flatten. In other words, it becomes easier because you're used to doing it. The human brain is not just kid. We like to say, oh, kids can learn anything and they learn super fast. We all do. All humans do. All men and women will have that same capability for just learning things. That's just how our brains work. That's what gives us one of our competitive edges with, you know. Anyway, so at that 80 to 90%, or 80 to 100%, this is a long, drawn-out process. This may take months or years or even decades to really refine one's craft. Now, fast forward in time, let's say it's my 2-year work anniversary. Wow, I can't believe it. You know, I started in 2024. It's already 2026. I don't know why I'm looking at my watch, but it's 2026 now. It's my 2-year anniversary. I can't believe it. Those 2 years went by so fast. And then I look back at how much I've learned and how much that first day I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is just so much information. But we're patient with ourselves. And you might be asking yourself now, like, what does this have to do with magic? Well, this is magic. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We were patient with ourselves. We gave ourselves a chance, even though it felt like you didn't know if you could do it, but then you did it anyway. That's insanely motivating and builds confidence like nothing else. So, wouldn't you say that that's probably the primary way or the most optimal way to reinforce the same sort of thing with magic? That's what I've done. And it was not like something that I just set out to do. It was not something I made a list and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a list. No, there was no numbered list. It was an organic, natural process that just happened all by itself. It's amazing what will happen when you just get out of the way, get out of your own way. For a lot of us, myself included, a lot of the times you're just stuck. You're just standing there in the middle of the road and you're not sure where to go. Should I go left, right? Should I go forward, back? Take that lost pedestrian out of the equation and now look at it. Look at it from above, or whatever way makes sense for you. Remove that pin, that push pin that you had placed there. Remove it, which represents you and your kind of your fears and your stubbornness or whatever it is that's preventing you from moving on, from continuing on. Remove that. Now look at it again. Okay, it's not very difficult now. I just need to go this way. Like, it was right there the whole time. Just, you get lost in the imagery of being lost. You get lost in being lost, and now how are you supposed to find your way forward? You don't even know which way is forward anymore, which way is back. So, yeah, and a funny thing happens, like around I don't like putting numbers on these kind of things, but like if we think in terms of the curve, the 70 to 100% mark, that special period of time after, let's say, 2 weeks to a month, because on average it takes, the old saying is 6 to 8 weeks to build a new habit, whether it's a good habit, bad habit. If you keep doing it for 6 to 8 weeks, it'll be burned in there. It'll be automatic at that point. So that's essentially what we're doing here. We're creating a new positive habit. But at that, let's say 80% mark, when you get to that point, your level of effort just goes down tremendously, exponentially, I would say. Your confidence goes up. Your need to want to prove things to yourself goes away, or starts to go away. When you have those thoughts, you don't give in to them anymore. Like, there's no need to say, is this real? Is this true? Is this intention going to manifest? No need to ask those questions. There's no need. Because if it happens, well, there's your validation. It happened. If it doesn't happen, well, that there's a probably a good reason why it didn't happen. And that's one of the biggest keys, and that's what we're going to end with, because I see we're running out of time. So it has to be done from a place of humbleness, no, as little ego as possible, realistically. Because to say no ego, I'm not comfortable with that idea anymore. I don't think that's possible. To not be consumed by the ego, and to not, which I guess is ego, but to not want to instill one's will on the world, on the universe, on the reality. Stop trying to exact, my will, the will of I, on everything else. Couple different ways you could go with that. I'm not going to go into too much detail anymore here. We're pretty much done for the day. But if we are one with everything else, what sense would there be to trying to exact one's will on everything else? If you are that, and it is you, then you're forcing it with yourself. You're playing games with yourself, right? Just like when we hurt other people, we're really hurting ourselves. That's why we try our best not to do those things. Why else would it hurt, right? If you cause someone else great mental or emotional pain, you almost feel a little bit of that, right? You have to, unless you're inhuman or you're completely devoid. Like if you're completely cold and jaded, maybe. I don't know if it's entirely possible to shut that out completely, but for most of us, you're going to feel a little bit of that. And you're probably going to feel bad about it later, too. So, isn't that proof right there? Right? Even though I said we're not searching for proof, but if you're looking for some, why would you feel pain for someone else? It doesn't directly affect you or your survivability. I mean, maybe it does at a higher level. Of course it does. But does your DNA know that? Is it in there at the epigenic? I don't know if that's the right word. Epigenetic level? You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, this was a good video. I hope that someone else out there really will pick up on what I was channeling here for this one, and it helps you in some way. But really, I mean, if I want to bring it back now to magic and just bring this one home, that's how you do it. It's the same as anything else. You just keep practicing and practicing and practicing, but not in a forceful way. In just a delight to want to engage in these things. We don't struggle to do the things that we want to do. It wouldn't make any sense. We want to do those things because we enjoy them, and really we'll go to great lengths a lot of the time to make those things happen. So why not do that for other things that are good for you, like meditation, like exercise, like drinking enough water, like not eating terrible foods, like not smoking and drinking too much alcohol, right? That same approach, that same mindset. It's that whole my body is my temple. Okay, if you believe that, then live your life accordingly in all facets, in the physical, the spiritual, and the mental. Let's see it. Let's see it. You be careful when I say this, but you can only really give anyone else advice if you yourself are the embodiment of that advice, right? So I'm very careful not to give anyone any direct advice, very rarely. I'm just sharing my own experiences, which I think we should all be doing a lot more, because we'll get to see how similar we are in so many ways. But I don't have all the answers. I love that I don't have all the answers. I'm looking for the answers just like you, just like everyone. And anyone who claims that they have all the answers, no, that's immediately a lie, because one could not have all the answers. It's not possible. So, anyway, I have said enough. Again, I hope you got something out of that. Peace, love, be well, take care. See you next time.